thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you all watching, even though I have no people watching right now. That's okay. So we'll just give it a couple seconds, see if we get anyone on. Just real quick, a little background. The reason I'm doing this at a different time today is I got to go into work at like 1:45, so I wanted to be able to get this in before I went. I'm also trying to commit myself to doing more scheduled live streams, more scheduled videos every week. I started a Patreon, so I want to make sure, even though I don't have any Patreon followers right now, which is fine, I wanted to make sure that I'm being consistent and doing what I can in order to put these videos out on a scheduled basis. So, also, forgive me, my dog is sick in addition to me being sick, so if I have to run out for a quick second to help my dog, you know what's going on. So, sorry about my raspy voice, which is worse than even normal. So, what I wanted to talk about today is, sadly, the impeachment, because I'm as guilty as most of the Republicans in allowing the Democrats to control the narrative. But I'm going to kind of be doing that in more of a macro way and looking at it and talking about why I think not only is the impeachment a sham, as most people know, but it's also a distraction. So, I'm going to do that. I want to talk about some of the ironies and contradiction that's going on with it. And I also wanted to kind of explain the impeachment procedure because I know a lot of people, at least that are personally friends with me, have no clue what this means at all. So I just wanted to go through a little bit of what the process actually means now that Trump has been impeached. So let's start with why I think, in addition to this being a coup and a sham, that it's a distraction. So I'm not so conspiratorial that I'll say that Schiff's timing of having his hearings on impeachment were purposely scheduled to coincide with the release of the FISA investigations from the Inspector General. Because I think that Schiff and these people were going to try to impeach Trump no matter what. The impeachment serves several reasons. One is it's to placate their base. The second is they think that this could help them politically in the 2020 election. I think that will backfire. We shall see, though. The third is, and perhaps the most important reason, what are all of the things that have been accused, they've accused Trump of and wanted to impeach him for, other than just the general Russia stuff, which they never had? It's always things like obstruction of justice and other things like that. My contention is, what these really are about, when the Democrats really got furious, was anytime Trump's on the verge of investigating crimes that the Democrats or their deep state allies, such as the intel community, are committing. That's when they get really furious. That's why they're coming with knives out with Barr and Durham. That's why they're so upset that Trump's decided to possibly investigate. Yeah, I hear you, Kishki. That's why they wanted to investigate. When Trump suggested investigating Ukraine, they got so furious. That's why they're impeaching him. Because they know their life depends on it. Their political careers depend on their corruption never being outed. And my argument all along, and I still believe this is true and it's bearing out more and more every day, is there's kind of this ceasefire, this mutually assured destruction that occurs in politics, where both sides are afraid to call out the other side's corruption because they know the other side has something on them. It's like the movie Serpico, right? They want all the dirty cops want Serpico to take the bribe, because they know once he takes the bribe, then he can never be a whistleblower against them, because he's as guilty as them. That's the way our political system works. That's why no one of import is ever brought to justice, because all sides know that there's some dirt on them, and if they start the dominoes going and say, well, we're going to go after Hillary Clinton for the Clinton Foundation and the pay-for-play scheme, they know that Hillary's got the goods on, well, then we'll go after Paul Ryan if he did something, or Lindsey Graham if he did something, whatever, someone on the other side. So there's this agreement with the establishment in the Republican and Democratic Party where they're just like, well, we'll play the game. We'll pretend to have differences when it comes to like trying to get voters. We'll pretend to dislike each other. But at the end of the day, it's just a game to them. And they're most concerned about keeping power and making sure that their crimes are never outed. So along comes Trump, which is exactly the type of reason I voted for him. And he hasn't been playing that game with him. He's a potential outsider, right? So they're frightened of what he might do. So they give him a chance. I mean, they smear him and they're spying on him, like as we know from the FISA warrants or the FISA IG report, as I'll get to more later. But they're, oh, we hope he doesn't rock the boat. We hope he doesn't end our foreign regime change wars. Remember, the only time they ever praised Trump's when he was bombing Syria. That's the party of peace. That's the media. The same people 15 years ago that told you, oh, we got to march against war, the Iraq war. Oh, the intel community lied to us. Oh, Cindy Sheehan. Oh, we're going to march against Bush. All these celebrities, Punk against Bush, Rock against Bush. He's a warmonger. He should go in front of the Hague. Remember that? Those same people 15 years ago that were saying that are now the people saying, we need to have more bloodthirsty actions towards Syria, more towards Russia. We need to believe the intel agencies uncritically. We can't have any sort of questioning of them. Yeah, congratulations, Captain Marvel. You predicted what everyone in their right mind did. But thanks for joining anyways. I enjoy having people that maybe even disagree with me on here. By the way, Captain Marvel, if you would ever like to come on the show and disagree with me, I think I'd be more than polite to you. So, anyways, that's what this was about. Trump started to investigate their crimes. He started to investigate what was going on with the Bidens and others in Ukraine. The even bigger story is going to be China when we find out that Biden's family was personally receiving billion-dollar contracts from the Chinese government, which is our biggest rival. Right? That's what they can't tolerate. They have to end that. The irony is they keep talking about obstruction of justice, and I just did a video on this. And the idea is as follows, that remember back in the Mueller investigation, I was saying how stupid it was that they claimed that Trump's mean tweets about Mueller or suggesting that he wanted the investigation to be ended or suggesting that Mueller should be fired, even though he never did any of it. I said, that's not obstruction of justice. It's absurd to say so because what the Democrats are effectively saying is any grousing, any being upset about a potential investigation into you or your side is obstruction of justice. Well, how isn't that exactly what the Democrats have done then? Trump has his DOJ looking into Ukrainian election interference, possibly working with the DNC. He has them looking at possible crimes of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And they say, no, we have to make those investigations illegal. They're publicly criticizing Barr and Durham, who are trying to do investigations that might lead to them being the targets. How is that not obstruction of justice based on the same criteria? But even more than that, they're now saying the second article of impeachment that they just voted for was obstructing Congress, another form of obstructing justice. Of course, this is just a made-up term. But with the obstructing Congress, the argument was this, because Trump refused to have his people comply with subpoenas, that was obstructing Congress. The problem is presidents do this all the time. Obama did the same thing. We have three equal branches of government. The executive branch decided they're not going to listen to the legislative branch. So they use an arbiter of the judicial branch, the courts, which is perfectly legal. The courts will then decide whether or not Trump's people have to comply with the subpoena. For the first time in history, Congress is saying, no, the court should not get to weigh in, and the executive has to listen to anything we say. We are superior to the executive branch. They don't get to have input from the third branch to see whether or not that's the case. Somehow they argue, and they voted for this. Now, the beauty of being a Democrat is when you control the narrative, because you control all the public institutions of power that shape our narrative, you never have to be called out for your hypocrisy. So no doubt in the future, we'll see a Democrat president or a Democrat senator or House member that says, hey, I'm not going to comply with this subpoena. I want to take this to the courts. And of course, at that point, every right-minded person will be like, wait a minute, all the Democrats said that's obstruction. That person should be impeached. And they'll say, no, this is different. Trump was an evil, racist Nazi. That's why. So, what's the biggest, what am I saying? What was my video? The biggest example of obstruction of justice. The Constitution's very clear. House votes whether or not a president should be impeached. If they vote to impeach, the articles of impeachment are sent to the Senate. That's done by the House Majority Leader, Speaker of the House, who's Nancy Pelosi. She sends it to the Senate. The Senate then has a trial. Nancy Pelosi is threatening not to send those articles of impeachment. Now, that's against the Constitution. So let's talk, what does obstruction of justice mean? It would mean that there's some kind of legal case going on, right? There's a court case going on. There's an investigation going on. And someone is taking actions to ensure that that case isn't allowed to successfully draw to a conclusion. Because our legal system, the idea is it's to seek justice. You might not agree with how the legal system works out. You might think O.J. Simpson was guilty. He should have went to jail. But our legal system says that trial had to play out. To try to force that trial to end, particularly if you're instrumental in that trial beginning, that would be obstruction of justice. Nancy Pelosi threatening not to send the articles of impeachment to the Senate so that they could have a trial is literally the definition of obstruction of justice. So on one hand, they say Trump's mean tweets about Mueller was obstruction of justice. No, it's not. Trump wanting to go to the courts to see if his people have to comply to subpoenas is obstruction of justice. No, it's not. But refusing to do what you're constitutionally mandated to do as the Speaker of the House in order to ensure a trial happen, that is obstruction of justice. Now, clearly, the Democrats find obstruction of justice to be a serious crime worthy of impeachment. So I look forward to the Republicans bringing articles of impeachment against Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats agreeing to impeach her based on her obstruction of justice. Oh, wait, that won't happen because every single time the Democrats accuse Trump or people connected to him of committing some sort of crime, they're doing it, the exact same crime, more blatantly or in a worse fashion. Every single time. So that's what my video today was on. It's real simple. Now, what I wanted to focus most of this video on, and what I started with was, where am I at? Just like 12:03. Okay. They were always going to impeach Trump, and I gave you the reasons why. They're always going to try to, at least. And so it's no surprise to me that Schiff, they knew that the time was running out. They knew that eventually their abuses, take Schiff, for example. He knew that his lies that he'd been telling for years was about to be made public. And they have. He lied about saying he saw evidence that Trump and his team personally saw evidence that they illegally conspired with Russia. That was a lie. He lied when he said that he saw evidence that the FBI correctly followed the FISA procedures. That was a lie. And he knew that lie was about to be outed. And so they had to throw up a Hail Mary. So this Ukraine stuff. Now, it's laughable, as I'll get to a little later why it's laughable, but they control the media, they control academia, they control Silicon Valley, they control the entertainment industry. So they're able to push the narrative. Average people don't know what's going on. At first, it may have sounded like, well, maybe something's here. The more the impeachment sham went on, the more people saw it was garbage. But that's what they did. So this was designed. Schiff knew that the IG report would out Schiff for the liar he was, would out him for the cheerer of corruption that he was. Someone who was telling you, the American citizen, that we couldn't investigate the FBI. We were hurting the country by investigating the FBI. His media parroted this. They didn't commit any crimes. Remember, he had access to the exact same information Devin Nunes did. Nunes releases his memo. Schiff said, you can't release the memo. Lives will be endangered. You're tearing this country apart. The FBI is good and noble. Schiff releases the memo anyways. Nunes releases a memo anyways. Schiff releases a counter memo. He saw the exact same material Nunes did. Somehow Nunes was completely right and Schiff was completely wrong. Schiff lied. He saw the evidence, he saw the FISA abuse, and he lied to the American people. And his narrative was the prevailing narrative because the Democrats, the establishment, controls the media, controls all those institutions I talked about. So the average American, we've heard for years, Nunes is a liar. He's corrupt. Oh, it was debunked. His memo was debunked. It was a nothing burger. It was a dud, right? That was all a lie. Who knows what would the effect in the 2018 election would have been had we known the truth? Had the American people known that Barack Obama's FBI was breaking laws and procedures, intentionally changing evidence, withholding evidence, giving the exact opposite impression of the evidence to a FISA court to be able to spy on Trump's campaign. If people knew that, they might have said, oh my God, what else are we being lied to about? The Democrats are this dirty? They knew about this? The people at the head of the Democratic Party, not your neighbor that's a Democrat, I'm not accusing them, but the people like Schiff, Pelosi, Nadler, Schumer, they knew about this FISA abuse. They had access to this evidence. But they lied to you. And Captain Marvel, if you're still in here, you're someone who doesn't like Trump. Yes, they lied to the rest of us, who I assume are conservative or Republicans or Trump supporters. Maybe not. But they lied to you, too, the Democrat voter. They lied to you, the Trump hater. And that should infuriate you as well. There are plenty of reasons to dislike Trump. I give many of them on this channel. You dislike his policies. You could dislike his personality. That's fine. No one begrudges you that. I might disagree on a lot of it, but fine. But the fact that your leadership lied to you and said that Trump was this Russian stooge or the FBI was totally on the up and up, that should infuriate everyone. I pronounced that really stupid. So Schiff knew that was coming out. But that's why the impeachment took place when it did. But even more of an example of that was Nadler's then. Remember? Because, you had the impeachment hearings in the Intel Committee, which Schiff runs. And then, after those were closed, and that's the ones I followed, that's the ones you saw me doing videos and live streaming while it was occurring. You know, that's where you had all these witnesses, Vindman and Hill and Yovanovitch, right? Ugh, losing my voice. Sorry about that. That's where you had all of them. But then Nadler, the following week after that wraps up, says, oh, my committee's also going to have impeachment hearings. Now, they didn't bring any first-hand witnesses. They just brought legal scholars that said, it was basically a CNN panel that said, yep. You remember that's where that woman, that very stoic legal scholar, made fun of Barron Trump? Remember that? One of the things I found shocking, not how stupid that was. Of course, Nadler's going to do something that stupid. Fine, whatever. But what I found shocking was they only did one day. And then they were like, oh, okay, that's it. Now, what was going on there? What was the purpose of that day? It's my contention, if you look at the timing of what was going on, they basically wanted filler because they wanted the impeachment vote to coincide with the release of the IG report. So they had to say, oh, now we need to have more hearings. Oh, what's that? We find out the IG report's coming out next Monday. Yep, we're wrapping up all of a sudden. And so just coincidentally, the day the IG report's coming out, that's when they're having their public debate on whether or not we should impeach. And what did I say back then? I said, this was intentionally timed. There's no other explanation for why Nadler would only do one day. They know that their media allies will then be able to do this. Well, the IG report, it was those FISA abuses. It was bad. There were a few bad apples. That was bad. But it wasn't that bad. And, it was still worthy. The FBI is still trustworthy. And they're taking care of it. Anyways, on to impeachment. And that's exactly what's happened. IG report, FISA abuse, that's a distant memory. We're talking about impeachment. And this is one of the things that Republicans are terrible at. They allow the Democrats to control the narrative so severely that it puts them behind the eight ball perpetually. We just found out proof that the most powerful investigative agency in the history of the world was being controlled by one political party, the Democrat Party, the Obama administration, used unverified research that party, the Democrats, dug up using foreign spies and Kremlin agents to spy on Trump's campaign, to spy on their opponent's campaign. 17 times they broke policy in their efforts to do that. That included literally taking evidence and altering it to say the opposite of what it was. That includes talking to a subsource who said this whole case is garbage, and then telling the court, we talked to the subsource seemed very honest, and leaving out, oh, and what they said was the whole case was garbage. That is the biggest political scandal in the history of our country. And no one seems to care. I'm yelling myself hoarse about it. Last week. Where are the Republicans today? Impeachment? Who cares? A bunch of people that have been trying to impeach Trump since the day he came down the escalator, since the day he won the nomination at least. Finally at the 0 hour got their wish to distract from the fact they cheered for corruption from the FBI for 3 years. And the Republicans are again playing defense. Yes, it's fine and great, and I'm as guilty as well to be talking about why the impeachment's a sham. The entire thing is just a distraction. It's just political theater. The real meat is what we're being told the FBI did. Now, if you watched my last live stream Tuesday night, I talked, one of the things that you learn, like through debating or whatever, is some people will be willfully ignorant, right? They'll just, you can't convince them of the truth even if you show them the facts. They're still going to be like, nope. So one of the things, and sometimes you can't because it's a difficult situation and it's hard to determine what the truth is. So oftentimes what you want to do is say, here's why I think I'm right, but here's why I think I'm right, even if your argument's right. So in a nutshell, this is what my live stream the other night was about. I'll just break it down for 2 minutes. For the sake of argument, I will concede James Comey and Chris Wray and Jake Tapper and Rachel Maddow and Adam Schiff, all the Democrats, all the media, all the FBI people, the intel people. I'll concede their argument I'll concede their point for the sake of argument. And that point is the FBI is incredibly incompetent. They're not corrupt. They're just incredibly incompetent. How incompetent? Well, they've seen the same evidence me and you have seen, right? The FBI doesn't know that when you get an email of evidence that says this person was an asset for the CIA, they're so incompetent, they didn't know you're not supposed to change that email and say, oh, this person was not an asset for the CIA. They just didn't know that you were not supposed to alter evidence to say the exact opposite. They didn't know when they talked to the subsource that their whole FISA warrant relied on, and he said, look, this is all garbage. They didn't know that they weren't supposed to just report to the FISA court, oh, we talked to that person and he told the truth. They didn't know they were supposed to say, oh, and the truth he told was that we're wrong about everything we said. They just didn't know. That's how incompetent the FBI is. This is the same organization that's protecting us from organized crime, protecting us from terrorism, protecting us from sexual predators, protecting us from white-collar crimes that could bankrupt us, like Enron-type stuff, or the banking, right? The 2008 banking crisis. Same organization. They're the same organization that assures us that it was Russia that hacked the DNC and the Podesta Group. How are they going to be able to have the competence, the intelligence, the ability to investigate like the Las Vegas mass shooter or the Russian hacks if they literally don't know, oh, we're not supposed to alter evidence to say the exact opposite of what it is? This isn't my argument, right? This isn't what I believe that it's incompetence. That's their argument. That's their defense of the FBI. And they use that to say, no big deal. That's a victory. That's vindication. James Comey's taking victory laps. Baker demanded an apology from Trump. How dare you accuse us of being corrupt? We're just so inept that kindergartners could do our job better than us. Shame on you for saying we're corrupt when we're just the worst ever at our jobs. That's what the impeachment vote was about. Yes, it was about placating their base. Yes, it was about trying to help them win in 2020. Yes, it was about trying to cover up crimes that they committed in places like Ukraine. But the number one reason it happened the way it did and when it did was it was to distract you from the fact that the Democrats at the highest level knew about the corruption from the FBI that was targeted towards the Trump campaign, cheered on that corruption, tried to keep you tooth and nail from seeing any evidence of that corruption, and continues to downplay it once it's been made public. That's what the impeachment stuff's about. That's why it's going to be covered nonstop. That's why the virtue signaling is going on about this is a solemn day. We'll remember this for the rest of our life. History will judge this. What a monumentous day. That's what it's all about. Not monumentous that the premier intelligence agency in this country is corrupt and was seeking to go after a political guy they didn't like. The same people that lied to you. Not that lied to some abstract person out there. You. They lied to you, the American citizen, or even if you're not an American citizen. Just a member of public concerned with an agency of this much power or concerned with U.S. politics. They lied to you. They were violating an American's rights. They were spying on their opposition's campaign. Chuck Schumer told us, remember, on Rachel Maddow's show after Trump won the nomination? Boy, Trump shouldn't criticize the intel agencies. They'll find 6 ways of Sunday of getting back at you. That's exactly what happened. And we're called conspiracy theorists for bringing that up. But the same people that lied to you, the FBI, the Democrats, the media, academia, the entertainment industry, Silicon Valley, those same groups that lied to you. They lied to you about Trump being a Russian stooge. They lied to you about his team illegally conspiring with Russians to affect the 2016 election. They lied to you about the FBI being beyond reproach. They said that not only will they not look into the FBI abuses, but if you do it, you're hurting the country. They lied about all of that. And they knew the truth, and they still lied about it. Those are the same people telling you, oh man, this impeachment's a great thing. Yep. What's up, Dib? Nice to see you, man. Sorry about my voice here again. Let me read the comments here. Now we'll see what Durham and Barr come to the conclusion of with their investigation. But if people aren't held criminally accountable for this, it's the end of the republic. That's not hyperbole. If this much evidence of corruption could be outed and nothing's done, no one of consequence pays a price, it's only going to get worse. So I follow a guy on Twitter named Michael Tracy, and he's a progressive, I think it's fair to say, not a Trump supporter, but he's another one of these Trump haters who understands what a sham the Russia investigation was, how dangerous it is for the FBI to be this corrupt, how the xenophobia towards Russia is damaging, and how this impeachment thing's a sham. Right? Michael Tracy understands all that. I respect that. I respect people that don't like the candidate I like, but they have integrity to understand. That doesn't mean I'm going to cheer for corruption. Right? Right before I came on, I tweeted, he had tweeted something to the effect of, it's amazing and frightening how the Russia stuff's still part of impeachment. How this Cold War mentality of Russia has to be our enemy. We have to be aggressive towards Russia. How that's been codified permanently by being part of these articles of impeachment that were voted on. And what I said was, which he's right to say that, what's even more frightening is the same people that 15 years ago, after the Iraq War, the exact same people that were most vocal against the Iraq War, that supposedly were people for peace. They were against the foreign regime change wars. Same people in the media, the same people in the entertainment industry, the same people that were my friends. I was against the Iraq War, even though I was conservative. Remember? Bush should be in The Hague. Bush lied. People died. War crimes. Cindy Sheehan marching on Bush's, what was his, Camp David or whatever, right? Remember all that? Michael Moore and Cindy Sheehan and, Bruce Springsteen was putting out albums against Bush, and I listened to punk music. I had this album, Punk Against Bush, all about the Iraq War being wrong. And the media came out and they were like, we were lied to by the intel agencies and by the Bush administration and all these unelected officials. We were lied. We'll never leave it happen again. Down with warmongering. 15 years is all it took. All it took was 15 years. Less than a generation. For those same people to now cheer on the war, cheer on the intel agents, not just cheer them on, they're willing to break any law to defend these corrupt people. They're willing to put masks on and attack you. They're willing to spit on you at restaurants. They're willing to call you a racist or get you fired from your job. They're willing to riot and destroy property. All to defend this corruption. 15 years is all it took. George Orwell would be impressed by the speed that we were able to take a large section of the United States. This wasn't a few people, millions of people, including some very powerful ones. We were able to take them and not just have them kind of change their mind, become the biggest critics of the intel community to now becoming their biggest defenders. What's up, Cindy? 15 years. That's all it took. They're celebrating today. Trump's impeached. Yes. Yes. Thank God. Finally. For what? They can't even tell you. It's been this way the entire time Trump's been in office. Trump's a racist. Okay, can you explain to me how? Well, he's just racist. We know he's a racist scumbag. Trump hates gay people. What has he done? Can you show me how? Well, we just know. We just know he is. He's committed crimes. Oh, he's the most dirty, crooked politician ever. Can you give me examples? They can't. They'll say things like, well, he wanted to have this dinner, steak dinner at Mar-a-Lago, and, he called countries S-hole countries. Are you kidding me? That's all they ever do. It's becoming a new tactic, not new, but it is the favorite tactic at this point of the establishment left. You can't have a serious conversation. All they say, you'll bring out literally specific facts, and they're like, everybody says this has been debunked. Do you remember, one of the first things I remember arguing about, I remember I was with friends and my wife at a casino. I don't have a lot of money, so it sticks in my mind when we go on vacation. We're at vacation, and the Charlottesville thing happened. And I come back, and I'm on blogs, I'm talking politics a lot, and it's blowing up. Trump's defending the KKK. Trump's defending racist. He gave 3 speeches. He condemned the KKK and racism. Every speech. Every single one. To this day, the narrative is still, Trump defended the KKK. Trump defended racism. No, he didn't. It's the exact opposite of the truth. Everyone agrees that that's what he did. No, he didn't. They lie. I mean, it's just, that's all they do. The Ukraine stuff. Everybody says it's been debunked. It's a conspiracy. No, it's not. Here are specifics I can point to. I did a debate with that YouTuber Destiny. Wait a minute. Isn't it all a lie? No, it's not a lie. That's just what they say. They don't talk in specifics. Watch yesterday. I didn't watch a lot of it because it was all political theater. But watch the Democrats that are talking about why they're going to vote for impeachment. They can't help themselves. They can't outline a specific crime. They just say, we hate this dude. He's a really bad dude. Well, what specifically did he do? Well, he's a bad dude. His whole administration's he should have been removed from the get-go. Remember, this is the 4th time they've tried to impeach him. They tried to impeach him over the Kaepernick stuff. They tried to impeach him over his Helensky stuff with Putin. They tried to impeach him over saying S-hole countries. These aren't impeachable offenses. One of the articles they impeached him for was doing what almost every president before him has done, at least in my lifetime, which is going to the judicial system, going to the courts to see if their people have to comply with subpoenas. That's nonsense. Everyone with half a brain who even follows politics could look and be like, wait a minute, didn't Obama do this all the time? Yeah. But that was okay. It was okay for Obama. Obama uses executive privilege to get his AG Holder out of trouble on Fast and Furious. No problem. The Republicans didn't impeach. They said it was shady. They said it was crappy. No impeachment hearings. Trump does stuff like that, threatens to use executive authority. Oh, that's obstruction of justice. That's impeachment. That's it. That's what they're about. They don't have that. I challenge anyone. I challenge anyone. I don't care if it's a Democratic senator. I don't care if it's Chuck Schumer or Adam Schiff himself or any of the media people. I challenge any of them to have a conversation with me about this impeachment. It is a joke. It's designed to distract from the fact that the same people that lied to you, that made fun of you. Oh, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist if you thought the FBI would violate FISA policy. One of the things I talked about in my live stream Tuesday night was this. So many people, you could go on Twitter and find them, even people that were my friends, said, look, there is no way that the FBI used unverified opposition research to spy on someone associated with Trump's campaign. There's no way. And you know why they knew there was no way? Because it would be so corrupt that it's not fathomable. Well, now we know it was worse than that. Not only did they do that, but then 17 times they broke procedure, including directly lying to the court, changing evidence to say the opposite of what it said. Where are those people now? Is your hatred of Trump so bad that you're willing to sacrifice your personal integrity? Not me. There's never been a politician alive that I'm going to sacrifice my integrity and who I am just because I like or dislike them. And you might be a weak or a corrupt or just a bad person if you're willing to change everything about yourself, all of your ideals, all of your integrity, just because you like or dislike some other person. Yeah, and you're right, Milo. This did start when Obama was elected. Not to get off on a tangent, but I guess I'll talk about this for a minute. Obama represented this kind of elitist, leftist thinking that I was familiar with through academia. I did debate in college. They're the leftists of the left. It is what you hear about, like with Saul Alinsky and those type of tactics. They know better than you. Not only do they know more than you, according to them, they're good people and you're not. And therefore they could lie They can mislead you. They could use you. It doesn't matter because they know better. They're good people. And so whatever they have to do to achieve their goals is acceptable. That was what Obama represented. In general and in specifics. Remember? His people, they admitted, yes, we had to lie about the whole, you could keep your doctor. Because we knew better than the American people. So we had to lie to them to get them to vote. That's what the Democratic Party is. And it's not just the Democratic Party, it's the establishment. Right? Make no mistake about it. The Jeff Flakes of the world, the John McCains of the world on the Republican side, same thing. They know what's better for you. That's why they want huge government. That's why they want these powers. They don't want you to have personal freedom and liberty. At all. That's what the Green New Deal is. You shouldn't be allowed to decide to eat meat. You shouldn't be allowed to decide to own a vehicle. You should have to go to them. Be totally reliant on the government. You are just, it's a feudal system. It's going back to the Dark Ages. Don't believe me? Check out San Francisco. Check out LA. That's what they want. They want to live in their castle. When all of us are groveling to them, please throw us bread, please, as we live in squalor. They don't care. They'll lie right to your face. They'll play these games. Go look at the Kavanaugh stuff. Go look at the Covington kids stuff. They don't care. They're shameless. Look at Adam Schiff. He gets caught lying. Any repercussions for him? Nope. He's back on TV the next day, spreading more lies. Gets caught lying again. Oh, well, surely this time he's blackballed. Nope. He's back on TV. Everything they say is a contradiction. It's them doing it worse. For example, again, this is the Democrats' own narrative. They keep saying, including, I think the best example of this was, what was her name? Fiona Hill, who testified for the Democrats, and she said, oh, this Ukraine stuff. Giuliani talking about Ukrainian election interference. That's just what the Russians want. That's Russian talking points. And now that's what the media and the Dems say. You can't look into our crimes or that's helping Russia. That's what they're saying, right? Meanwhile, they all admit, even if Russia wanted Trump to win, also, no matter who won, they just wanted to monkey up the system, basically. They wanted to interfere in our system. They wanted to weaken the United States. They wanted to make the people of this country distrusting of their government. Now, I got to listen to, just take someone random, Jake Tapper, right? Let's say Jake Tapper. I got to listen to Jake Tapper say, when I point to specific evidence of Ukrainian election interference and of the State Department under Obama forcing Ukrainian prosecutors to stop investigations into the Ukrainian officials interfering in our system to help Hillary Clinton, when I have to listen to Jake Tapper say, how dare you talk about those facts? These aren't opinions of mine. We have actual quotes from them. We have actual audio from them. We have actual proof from the courts in Ukraine of this. But Jake Tapper says, me saying that is spewing Vladimir Putin's talking points, right? I'm hurting the country. I have to listen to this from Jake Tapper and people like him that for 3 years told us Trump was a Russian stooge. Which was a talking point to help benefit Russia. The most effective one that's still in articles of impeachment today. Now, what weakened the country more? They can't even get the simplest things right. Scott Adams, I talked about this the other day. He did Dilbert. He's great. You should follow his blog. I disagree with him on some things, but I think he's a really smart guy. And he comes at things from a different angle. Last week, after I think it was not this Monday, but the previous Monday, go watch his podcast. You can find it on YouTube, whatever that date was. I've heard Scott Adams maybe swear 2-3 times in hours upon hours of watching him. He probably drops the F word 40-something times because he's furious. And what he's furious about is this. It's not the impeachment. He says, I could handle the impeachment. I could handle people being wrong. But it's the lying. It's that he knows, just like I know, and just like you know. They don't believe the garbage they're shilling. They don't believe it. You want to know how I know that? If the Democrats would have came out and said, yeah, finally we got a case to impeach Trump, damn right we're happy about it. At least then you could say, well, that certainly they are happy about it. But no, Pelosi and Schumer and all them, they had to pretend, oh, we're praying for Trump. This is a somber moment. Oh man. And the media pretended, oh, we're not taking a side in this. It's a very somber moment for the country. And you knew they were lying. You knew it. So what happened yesterday after the vote for impeachment? There's the Washington Post tweeting out, right? Happy impeachment. All smiling. Huh? What happened to that impartiality? That's weird. There's Tlaib and a bunch of other people cheering, celebrating, clapping. Pelosi having to be like, shh, come on, we got to pretend. They can't even get that right. They can't even get that aspect of it right. It's all a lie. They don't care. Now, is this me saying that the other side won't lie to you? No, they might. I'm suggesting we think critically. We look at facts. We try to hold people to account and not allow double standards. That's what I'm suggesting. The side that's telling you, you just have to believe something because everybody says it, so it must be true. That's what you should be skeptical of. Now, for those of you that don't know, like, where are we at? 47 minutes. For those of you that don't know exactly what the impeachment was about, let me break it down for you and just in the simplest terms. By no means am I a constitutional scholar. I'm just some regular guy, right? Here's specifically what the impeachment was about. A whistleblower, a guy by the name of Eric Charmella, who himself had personal stakes in helping facilitate crimes that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were committed in the Ukraine, or at least possible crimes, and didn't want them to be looked at, was dismayed when he found out through secondhand information that Trump asked the new president of the Ukraine, Zelensky, to look into those possible crimes. What was the culmination of those crimes? Well, not only was Hunter Biden being paid huge sums of money by someone that Biden and Obama themselves were admitting was corrupt, this former Russian oligarch, Ukrainian oligarch who was pro-Russian. But then Joe Biden, once an investigation into that guy started coming up, bragged about withholding $1 billion US tax dollars that was designed to go to the Ukraine unless they fired the prosecutor looking into his son's company. For Trump wanting to look into that, he has been impeached. That's it. Now, they could baffle you with BS. They could say, oh, but no, that prosecutor wasn't doing a good job. Biden wanted his son investigated harder. That's part of their narrative. That's part of the... does that make any sense to you? Do any of you have children? Does that ring true to you? I'm really upset that my son's not being investigated harder. Does that make any sense? That's their argument. That's the Democrats' argument. Right? Not to mention that we know now that all of these things that they said about that prosecutor were a lie. Like they said he wasn't doing anything. We know days before, the lawyers for that corrupt oligarch contacted the State Department that prosecutor had seized property in his investigation into that oligarch. So he seizes a bunch of property from this oligarch. The lawyers for that oligarch contact the State Department. What do they say? This isn't me making this up. This isn't hearsay. We see the documents. We can see the emails. They've been made public. the lawyers for this, the guy that Biden and Obama are calling corrupt, their lawyers contact the State Department and say, hey, Hunter Biden works here. Is there any way we can make this disappear? Within a month, there's Joe Biden threatening to withhold $1 billion unless this guy's fired that just seized the assets in the course of his investigation of this corrupt oligarch. Then the investigation gets kicked to the Obama-allied NABU, the same NABU whose head, Artem Sitnik, was publicly acknowledging to interfering in the 2016 election to help Hillary. So it goes to Obama's ally, Biden's ally. Surely now the corrupt Burisma company and their leader will be brought to justice, right? Nope. They bury the case. Now it sounds confusing. And it is. So here's how I made it as simple as possible, right? Anytime we have someone in the executive branch that's taking huge sums of your tax dollars and threatening another country with it, unless they fire a prosecutor that's looking into their family, we should have an investigation. Period. It's that simple. I don't know how to make it more simple. And if you don't like Trump and you're thinking, well, I don't know, that sounds... Just switch the word Biden, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden out with Don Jr. and Donald Trump. You could say, but wait a minute, didn't a bunch of countries in the EU say that they wanted this? I don't care. But didn't Rachel Maddow say that it was okay? I don't care. But didn't Christine Lagarde, who attended George Soros' wedding and was the head of the IMF, didn't she say this was a good idea? I don't care. That's not how our system works. Now, unlike Schiff claiming, oh, Trump told the president of the Ukraine to make up dirt on Trump. He lied when he said that. All Trump did was say, can you cooperate with our investigation into this? The Democrats have criminalized investigations into them. That's what happened. Since before Trump was elected, the Democrats and their corrupt FBI and intel people and media have been investigating Donald Trump. Since before he was sworn into office, that's occurred. But to even start to investigate the Democrats is a crime. What did I tell you? They always do. They accuse you of what they're doing 10 times worse. Every single time. We want to investigate Trump. They know, for God's sakes, they know it has been proven that the FBI lied to be able to wiretap Trump associates. Proven! After we were told for 3 years we're tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists for believing that. We now have it proven. They don't care. They don't care at all. They say that's fine. Look at some of these double standards, okay? You ready for this? Trump should be impeached by asking Zelensky to cooperate in investigating the Bidens, right? Okay? According to the Democrats' logic, instead of talking to Zelensky and asking him this, if Trump would have just paid to have someone, a former spy, say, oh, Hunter Biden was getting peed on with Joe Biden, and they're corrupt, then he could have used the FBI to spy on the Bidens. And that would have been perfectly legitimate. Do you see how stupid this is? Trump supposedly committed obstruction of justice by fighting subpoenas in the court, which we know previous presidents have done. They say that's obstruction of justice. If instead Trump would have just deleted all of the subpoenaed emails, the Democrats would have been fine with it. That's what Hillary did. How does this make any sense to anyone remotely objective? And here's where the Republicans go wrong. They don't understand why, Like, if you're not a corrupt Republican, right, and you're just looking at this, you're like, how can this be? The facts are so clearly in our favor. So clearly. The hypocrisy is so blatant. How is it that this is, like, not an open and shut case? It's not a done deal. Which maybe it is. We'll see in the 2020 election. Based on this corruption, even if you hate Trump, it should be a landslide for the Republicans and Trump. But we'll see. Why is it even a fight? Because they underestimate the power of controlling the narrative, which is something I've talked about in almost every video I've done. Going back, when did I start? A year and a half ago? 2 years ago? Constantly I'm talking about this. I don't hear anyone talking about it. People want to get so, like, I go to these Republican meetings, and people are like, oh, and I'm in rural Pennsylvania, and Trump will win rural Pennsylvania. But the confidence is astounding. No doubt Trump will win. No doubt. You see it a lot with Trump supporters today. Oh, impeachment, that's the nail in the coffin for Democrats. Maybe, maybe not. Constantly making the mistake the Democrats made. The Democrats underestimated Trump. The establishment underestimated Trump. We should not return the favor. The most competent people should be fighting back against this corruption, the establishment, the deep state, and the Democratic Party. Hey, what's up, John and Julie? Thanks for joining. Well, Milo, I get what you're saying. But yes, there is part of, you have to wait for the process to play out to be able to defend yourself accurately, but not entirely true. For example, there's nothing that says in the course of the impeachment that they couldn't have been making these arguments. I did video after video as how the Republicans were making mistakes in the impeachment hearings by not arguing the most effective things. Or we don't have Republicans that understand the importance of all of these tech firms being in bed with the intel agencies and the establishment Democratic Party. And we had people testifying in front of Congress that Google alone could change 15 million votes in 2020. Who is our competent Republicans fighting against this? I saw Ted Cruz. There are a couple. But why isn't this being talked about every day? We're supposed to believe that a couple of Russian trolls posting on Facebook and Pokemon Go, that had the power to change the election. But Google itself, being in the tank for the establishment Democrats, that's nothing to worry about. They should be on television every day, going on the offensive. The problem is the Republicans are constantly on the defensive. For example, just one example, the impeachment. The Republicans' big argument is it wasn't a quid pro quo. Okay, they're probably right. That's not the argument, though. The argument is, damn right, Trump wanted to investigate Burisma, the Bidens, and 2016 Ukrainian election interference. Not only is he allowed to do that, he should do it. He should be obligated to do it. We just spent 3 years investigating Russian election interference because we were told foreign election interference is the biggest deal possible. So why wouldn't the person tasked with enforcing the law make sure before we give hundreds of millions of dollars to another country that they're not corruptly interfering in our election systems? Here's the evidence. But no, that's not what they did. They constantly fall behind in this narrative. It's time to stop playing defense. Look, I'm one of the nicest, easiest people to get along with you'd ever meet, even if you disagree with me. I think that, for example, when I debated, I actually had to have my debate coach tell me at one point, look, Rob, when you lose, don't be so nice to the judge. Argue with him a little. Say, well, wait a minute, I thought I was winning. Don't be a jerk, but Make your point. I'm not just going to roll over. I'm not just going to be polite and say, well, thank you for judging. And I actually started to win more when I was more forceful. I would love to be doing a YouTube channel where we're talking about economic policies of the Democrats versus the Republicans or anything like that, where you could believe both sides are arguing in good faith. But I can't because the corruption's so strong. I constantly have to tell Republicans, you need to go on the offensive. Stop playing defense. Stop it. Right, John. You're right. Matt Gaetz is someone who's good at this. The Republicans are constantly operating on the, well, we'll continue to play by the Democrats' rules and we'll win their game. No. You had a corrupt sham impeachment in the House. Now the Senate gets their opportunity. First witness, Joe Biden. Second witness, Hunter Biden. Then we're going to bring in Victor Shokin that was fired. Have that carried on national television. Leave the people see what really happened. Yeah, and you're exactly right, Evil Smile. The Democrats are horribly incompetent. They're strategic in knowing how to control the culture because they've been very smart. They played the long game, and it was very smart. They've influenced our culture from the level of children for years. Don't believe me? Go to elementary school. You know, what's her name? Shoot. I know Deanna Fiamenko's one. The Factual Feminist. Why can't I think of her name right now? But I read her book. I got it right up there on the shelf. I'll check later. Look what she's talking about, what they're doing to boys in elementary school, kindergarten. All based on this Democrat establishment mantra of cultural Marxism. Boys are bad, girls are good. So the standard's now the girls. Oh, the boys acting rambunctious. Better drug them. I'm just on the cusp of that. I'm 35. You know, rambunctious boys in kindergarten? Yeah, that's called normal. Now we drug those kids. Study after study shows. We can see scholastically girls doing much better than boys. That's fine. I don't think those numbers alone show anything to be worried about. Maybe girls are just better at that type of stuff. That's fine. But when we see the narratives constantly the opposite of the truth. Oh, it's a patriarchy. It's all designed to screw girls over. That's just one example. The U.S. is bad. There's nothing to celebrate about this country. Everything. They're in fact, they've done it for generations. People laugh at me when I talk about the cultural institutions of power. I'm like, mainstream media, okay. It's controlled by the Democrats. Academia, okay. Silicon Valley, okay. Entertainment industry, who cares? You don't think that matters? Of course it does. Why do you think companies spend millions of dollars to get celebrity endorsements? Because it works, particularly with young people. You like some rapper. You hear that rapper thinks Trump's a racist. Now you think Trump's a racist. It matters. They've played that long game. The Republicans screwed the pooch for decades. They allowed this infiltration into our children of an uncontested narrative of cultural Marxism. The U.S. is bad. Republicans are bad. And of course, the truth is, they made a mistake as well, which they didn't realize, the establishment lab. They assumed they could control the monster. They can't. J.K. Rowling, did you see this today? J.K. Rowling came out and said, she had a tweet. She's the author of the Harry Potter books. Huge leftist. Hugely instrumental in creating online outrage mobs, right? Celebrated by the left. Oh, she came out retroactively and said some of her characters were gay in her books. Just virtue signaling 101, right? By the way, I have no problem with homosexuality. That's one of the things running for Congress. I'm all for gay marriage and things like that. I'm just saying, she did it to virtue signal. She comes out and has a tweet today that's like, yes, be whoever you want, be the gender you want, do what you want. But we shouldn't fire. Apparently there was a case where a woman was fired for saying men are men and women are women, and there's a difference. Just like that, thousands of tweets turned on her. How dare you, J.K. Rowling? Of course a trans woman is a woman. No, they're not. And I don't say that to be rude. I say that as an objective truth. And the truth matters. All of that. The entertainment industry, that all matters. Academia matters. I mean, I was in debate 2003 till 2008, but then I judged. You wouldn't believe, like, the stuff that we were hearing back then in 2003, 2004. If I would have told you in 2003, 2004, these aren't schlubs. It's not just people like me. It's like the top of the top. There was no divisions. I'm debating Harvard. I'm debating, all these Ivy League schools. Military academy. There's no divisions. These are people, some of the people I debated I would gather, like, just to give you an idea of this. I qualified for the National Debate Tournament, which is the top 72 teams in the country. But each school can send up to 3 teams. So actually it's only about 30 or 40 schools. I qualified from Clarion University, which is a small state school, one of the smallest in Pennsylvania. Very rare to see a school like that qualify. I will guarantee you that I had probably the bottom 5 of SAT scores of people that qualified. In other words, everyone in there, scholastically, way better at achieving than me. Their SATs way higher. I debated people with perfect SAT scores. I debated people with photographic memories. You could be talking about a book and they would be like, well, on page 233 it says, and I still did okay because I learned things. Like, your audience is a human. And you need to connect to that person. Just having a unbelievable intelligence isn't enough. You have to be able to argue, right? But I only bring this up to show these were considered the best of the best. Some of the smartest people that our academics have to offer. You would walk into a debate round, and this is the type of stuff that would go on. You would have one topic all year. The topic might be, they're worded, I'm not going to get into how they're worded, but they'll say something like, resolve, the United States federal government should substantially reduce its agricultural subsidies in one of the following 4 areas. Corn, rice, wheat, sorghum, something like that. So you'd walk into a room and you're like, oh, okay, we're going to be talking about subsidies this debate. And then your opponent would stand up to speak, that's teams of 2, and they would play the national anthem while simulating gay sex with each other and not say a word. That's it. Or they'd stand up and say, give the land back to the Native Americans while cutting up an American flag. Or they'd shut the lights out and throw a chair at you and say that you represented George Bush and fear-mongering or something. Or they would say all men should die. Or they would say all white people should die. Or they would say we have to reject all whiteness. Or they would say you should lose because you're white. Or because you're straight. Or because you're a male. Or they would say we have to reject capitalism. You would say, so what are you advocating, socialism? And they would say, no, we just say reject. And then we talk a million mile an hour. I was slow, right? So, like, if I'm just reading some of the comments here, like, this is how they would talk in debate. So some people are running into it with the body, but young least gone, and actually the confidence of voters of the courts of matters, you want to answer again, academia, there's undeniable overwhelming brainwashing the children of the Marxist ideology, the fictional impeachment, discuss hypothetical, the identified spreads, fuck fact, fuck reality, and then the Trump refused to oppose to be taken back because I'm president of trans logic. Like, that's how they would talk. So embarrassing that you were basically, by the time I was out of debate, instructed not to allow filming, because if your administrator or members of the general public saw what the best and brightest were up to, they would be appalled. They would be like, what? But that community was in such a bubble and so insular that this insanity was allowed to spring forth. So you actually thought you were smart the more nonsense you talked. The more you could virtue signal, the more you won. This was 04 through 08. The same crap I saw back then is now on regular college campus. It's when you see someone at Yale screaming about to a professor who wrote a letter saying, hey, maybe we should calm down on this whole idea of, banning people for certain Halloween costumes. And they're screaming, this is my home. How dare you? It's the same people screaming at J.K. Rowling today. It's the same people telling you there is no biological difference between men and women. That at the same time are saying, and our opponents are anti-science. People that disagree with us, they're the anti-science people. It's where you could have a guy called Bill Nye, the science guy, who, by the way, isn't a scientist, but he's the leading authority. Well, now he's been surpassed by Greta Thunberg. But before that, he was the leading authority on science and climate change. But he could do a special telling you there is no difference between men and women. The science guy telling you that. No, I don't care. If you're an adult and you want to identify, and you were born a woman and you want to identify as a man, I don't care. In fact, if you ask me, and it's in good faith and you're a reasonable person, you ask me, hey, I'd like to identify as a man, I would call you by the pronouns you want. I really don't care. But stop pretending that that's the truth. It's not the truth. You know, I had a relative that, I don't know what the technical term is, because I've since learned, I used to call it schizophrenia, but I think there's a more technical term. But like, I'm sure you've heard of this. There are people that hear voices that have multiple personalities and things like that. That doesn't mean that that's real, that they're multiple people. And I'm not really trying to get into the trans debate. I'm just saying. This is the kind of craziness that happens. That's what academia is now. Go read Jonathan Haidt. He started something called Heterodox Academy. Jonathan Haidt's a left-winger. H-A-I-D-T. Heterodox Academy. It's spelled like it sounds. I mean, he showed in the past 20 years, we went from, like, you could look at a graph of the people that identify as right to center or left, and it was always, there was more left-leaning people in academia, but it's gone up exponentially. And not just more leftists, more far leftists. More self-proclaimed Marxists, self-proclaimed socialists. Which is fine. I don't even want to keep those people out of academia, by no means. That's what academia should be to me, a test of ideas. But now it's becoming more and more hegemonic, more and more orthodox. That's what Heterodox Academy is about. Multiple points of view. But that's less and less the case. Now they're not only saying, it used to be the left is right and the right is wrong. Now it's the left is not only right, it's morally correct, and we won't even listen to the right. And us, the stupid parents, the stupid adults, we're paying thousands of dollars, mortgaging our child's future, getting them in perpetual debt, just to go and be indoctrinated at these places. And the Republicans aren't fighting back. The amount of subsidies going to these places is ridiculous. Eliminate them. Done. You want to help the younger generation? You want to solve the student debt crisis? Stop incentivizing going to these schools. Just to be indoctrinated and not learn a real world skill. And to become jaded and angry and reliant on the government. Trump was impeached for investigating the crimes or potential crimes of the Democrats and Biden's. The Democrats have effectively criminalized looking into them. They could look into you. They can even have the FBI break the law to spy on you. And that's okay. That's fine by them. They could do it for years. But if you even ask for another country to cooperate in investigation into their crimes, that's a crime itself. And that's allowed to fly because so many people only have access to the public narrative. Talk to your friends. Talk to your friends that hate Trump. Just tell them this. Do you think it would be cool if Trump withheld aid to the Ukraine unless they fired a prosecutor looking into his son? 90% of them are going to be like, hell no, that'd be terrible. Ring them up. That sounds criminal to me. Well, that's what Joe Biden did. Oh, well, that was different. Most of them are going to be like, what? Nah. But the ones that are a little more informed will be like, yeah, but a bunch of people said it was okay when Biden did it. That's not good enough. You know those same bunch of people that said that they knew Biden's intent was good, right? Let's talk about this for a second. I talked about this on my live stream the other night as well. I did this debate with this guy, Destiny. He told me, he's a left-wing person. He told me that it wasn't about Trump trying to benefit. It wasn't Trump's intent. Just the quid pro quo was guilt. Oh, I spilled water on myself like a chump. Right? Just the quid pro quo. Or even more specifically, to not misquote him, he said the idea that Congress approved aid and then Trump decided not to give that aid, that alone is impeachable. And I said, well, you'll admit that this is a political process. Well, yeah, but that's all we're talking about, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, because the people that matter at the end of the day are the people that are voting for impeachment. The Democrats could never make that argument. The Democrats couldn't say all quid pro quos should result in impeachment or all withholding of congressional aid should result in impeachment. Do you want to know why they couldn't make that argument? Because that's what they did. That's what the Obama administration did. We know that. One of the first videos I did in this whole thing was criticizing Ben Shapiro, right? Because here's Shapiro, supposedly a Republican, right? Here's his take. Okay. So he's right about this. He's saying what I'm saying. He's like, it's not that the quid pro quo is illegal, because we know that the Obama and Biden administration did that. And the Democrats were okay with that. In fact, we know quid pro quos are almost always used when it comes to us giving aid, which makes sense. Hey, we'll give you a bunch of U.S. tax dollars if you fight the terrorists that are in your country. Hey, we'll give you a bunch of tax dollars if you stop the corruption that's occurring in your country. That's the way it works. We know that. Right? So Shapiro is correctly arguing it's not just a quid pro quo. That's the point I was making. It has to be the quid pro quo was done, and the reasoning for the quid pro quo was for personal gain. Or was for personal corruption, right? That's how the Democrats could argue, oh, no. Obama and Biden's quid pro quo was perfectly legitimate because it was to help the country. It was to stop corruption in Ukraine. But Trump's quid pro quo, if it happened, which we still don't have proof of, it was wrong because it was just to help Trump in the 2020 election. So, right out of the gate, my debate with this guy, Destiny, was garbage because he refused to admit the obvious truth. He said, nope. And then he falls back on, I guess then Obama and Biden should have been impeached, but that doesn't mean Trump shouldn't. It's a total joke. It's whataboutism to talk about Biden and Obama. No, I'm not talking about Biden and Obama. I'm talking about why did Pelosi and Schiff and Nadler and Schumer and all the Democrats and all the people in the media that have a problem with this now not have a problem with it back then. I don't care if we relitigate Biden and Obama and impeach them. I care. Why should we trust the very people saying, oh, this is corrupt, if they allowed it to happen just a couple of years ago? So clearly, That debate was in shambles from the get-go. But here's what Ben Shapiro's saying. He's like, look, if they could prove that there's a quid pro quo from Trump, then yeah, I would think that's impeachable. And then he says, you know, the quid pro quo with Biden and Obama, I mean, it looks bad. And it's bad that Biden's son was working on this board. But that's how international business goes. It looks shady, you know, that stuff like this happens, though. So, now here's a Republican supposedly defending Trump who is bought so into the narrative of the Democrats, he doesn't even realize what he's doing. The crime isn't the action. It isn't the quid pro quo. The crime is the intent behind the action. And he is saying, I implicitly trust that Obama and Biden must have had a noble intention in having their quid pro quo, and at the same time, with no evidence whatsoever, in fact, we don't even know that it was a quid pro quo, but even if it was, that Trump's intention must have been corrupt. They assert this. I've said over and over and over again, and I don't hear the Republicans making this point. Every single witness that the Democrats have brought forward, every single argument that they've made in these impeachment hearings are just trying to get us where we know we're already at with Biden and Obama, that there was a quid pro quo. They can't even get there. But if they did, okay, so now we know that Trump and Obama and Biden did the same thing. Okay? Explain to me. Yeah, Ben Shapiro is a fake conservative. I agree. He's establishment, right? He's always making excuses for the corruption and stuff that occurs. But it's not, I just use him as an example because I happen to hear him say it. There are plenty of Republicans making this argument. I said, no, that's a mistake. Who even cares if there was a quid pro quo? The argument is, you're damn right that Trump should be investigating this corruption. Now, we know that the Democrats say, as long as you're doing a quid pro quo to investigate corruption, it's okay. Because that's their defense of Biden and Obama. So that should be the Republican case. Was Burisma corrupt? They got that one pretty good. Yes, even all the Democrat witnesses say, yeah, they're corrupt. They warrant investigation. Okay, sweet. Number 2. Was there corruption going on with the Bidens? I can't prove it, but there's certainly evidence. First off, as I said, anytime that we have an executive official withholding U.S. tax dollars to enforce the firing of a prosecutor looking into their family, that should be investigated, period. The fact that the FBI didn't investigate that further proves their corruption. So yes, Trump should have his DOJ looking at that. Secondly, all the additional evidence we see, which was going on with Hunter Biden, the money laundering scheme, the amount of money he was getting paid from someone that they knew was corrupt, the lies that were told about the prosecutor Shokin, that should be investigated. The third thing that should be investigated, Ukrainian election interference. Yes, damn right. The same Democratic witnesses that are aghast that Trump would want to ask Zelensky to investigate this admitted, George Kent admitted in closed-door testimony. Yes, we told the Ukrainian prosecutors, Lutsenko specifically, to drop investigations into Obama allies, particularly ones that were interfering in the election to help Hillary. Yes, that should be investigated. Somehow, the very people doing that corruption are the witnesses against Trump for saying he should be impeached for wanting to investigate them. I mean, that's insane. The Democrats are literally saying, we can commit crimes. We can withhold tax dollars for our personal benefit. We can do whatever we want. And if you try to investigate it, that itself is a crime. That's what this impeachment says. Now, what does it mean? If you're watching and you're like, how many people, and I understand, it's easy to make fun of these people, and I get it, and I do too. But you turned on Twitter last night, and there were many, many people like, yes, finally, Trump is no longer president. And you're like, yeah, that's not what happened. That's not how the process goes. Yeah, I mean, you're right, Milo. They claim, they cite the forefathers and they cite the Constitution, but they're doing so in a biased manner, in a corrupt manner. Of course it's corruption, John. You're absolutely right. So here's what happens. Impeachment happens, then the Speaker of the House is supposed to send over the articles of impeachment to the Senate. The Senate then has a trial. Then in order for Trump to be removed from office, you would need, the Constitution calls for 2/3 of the Senate to vote to have him removed. Because there's 100 senators, that number would be 67. Now, currently, the Republicans have 52 senators to 48? Something like that. The Republicans have a slight majority. So basically, every Democrat would have to vote for removal, plus 15 Republicans, or some number like that. I don't have the specific. It's not going to happen. Now, trust me, if it was close, there are never Trump Republicans that would be chomping at the bit. But they're not going to go out on a limb on their own. And they ain't going to get 15. So it's dead. It's dead in the water. It's nothing. It was showmanship. That's all it was. Political theater. No, I didn't see, John, I didn't see Gates talking about Hunter Biden smoking crack. Right, Bradley, and that's a great point. They're setting the precedent. You can't investigate their corruption. That's what the FBI is doing as well. They want you, I'm going to run for Congress again. They want me to be scared to death. If I would get in there and have any position of authority, that I would be afraid to investigate corruption from the establishment because I would be taken down. That's what they want. Just like with the Kavanaugh situation, right? Now, they knew that Kavanaugh was eventually going to get confirmed. But it wasn't just about Kavanaugh. It was about setting a precedent. Don't you dare be conservative and think about accepting a nomination to the Supreme Court. Know that we will shatter your life. And the Republicans don't fight back. They play defense. The Republicans aren't out there like, how did you make all your money, Nancy Pelosi? We're going to investigate. Nancy Pelosi's obstructing justice today by claiming she's not going to give the articles of impeachment to the Senate. We're impeaching today. We're raiding her lawyers' offices tonight, like they did to Trump. Every single one of them. I don't care, Republican or Democrat. They should be calling for the absolute destruction of the FBI and the CIA. Done. Eliminated. No more FISA court process. Done. Eliminated. No more messing around. It's over. We are going to go after you as hard as you've gone after everyone else. We're going to raid your lawyers' offices in the middle of the night. We're going to call Fox News to be waiting outside Nancy Pelosi's house when they drag her out with AR-15s pointed at her, like they did to Roger Stone. Have that nice and filmed and broadcast everywhere. Nothing will change until the treatment that they've done for decades is reissued on them. And until you get, yes, you have Matt Gaetz. Yeah, Meadows is leaving. You have Jim Jordan. Right? But until you get people in positions of leadership, and you have Trump, that are willing to do this, it's never going to start until the first domino falls. If Comey and Baker and Rebecca and McCabe and Rosenstein and all the people at the FBI that we now know committed all these abuses, if that's the beginning of it. If they're allowed to walk free, that's it. It ends before it begins. And I'm sitting here. I listen to, like, Lindsey Graham. Every day he's out there. He's saying the right things. They subpoenaing Hunter Biden. They subpoenaing Joe Biden. They talking to Victor Shokin, the prosecutor was fired. Or the next prosecutor, Lutsenko. They talking to any of them? Nope. All defense. Well, what Trump did wasn't that bad. Moving on. How about the Kavanaugh crap? If I was Republican, day one that Kavanaugh crap was over, I'd have been on national television saying, did you know there's a slush fund that people that have been members of Congress that have been accused of sexual improprieties use your taxpayer money to shut people up? I demand the release of every single name that's used that fund. Does that mean those people are guilty that used it? No. But turnabout's fair play. You, the taxpayer, shouldn't be paying for this. Let's see who's on the list. You know who did a decent job of this? Go back and watch Don Jr. on The View. I applaud him tremendously for finally going on the offense. And he did it in a strategic way. He goes on and they're like, oh, your dad said grab him by the P word. And he's like, look, the private conversation, do we all want to be judged by bad jokes or something that we've told? Oh, but it's more than that. What did he say? He's like, okay, hey, Joy Behar, you painted yourself in blackface once. Should you be held accountable to that? Should we still be talking about that? Or how about you, Whoopi? When your friend Roman Polanski anally raped a 13-year-old girl, you said that's not rape. You signed petitions to have the U.S. drop those charges so he could come back into the country. They were incredulous. They didn't know what to say. Because they've never had anyone point out their hypocrisy. Yeah, I mean, in 2014, Ukraine's not even the worst place. Wait until they get to China. And yeah, Bradley, you're right. They constantly pretend. And the reason is because at the establishment level of the Republicans, they know that they've done some crappy things too. You don't think John McCain or Jeff Flake or those type of people? I don't know. I can't talk specifically, but it seems to me that's what's going on. There's been so much corruption on both sides of the aisle that there's an agreement of mutually assured destruction. Well, we can't call out their corruption or they'll call out ours. The Democrats don't care, though, because they have an ace in the hole. They control the narrative. That's how they're able to say things that are such blatant contradictions. Believe all women. Okay, Keith Ellison, who's the second in charge of the DNC, his wife's talking about abuse she suffered at his hands. Unlike with Christine Blasey Ford, she has contemporaneous witness statements, she has police reports, she has photos of injuries she allegedly sustained. Does that mean Ellison's guilty? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But that's more evidence than there was against Kavanaugh. And at the same time, hashtag believe all women, hashtag her truth with Blasey Ford. Nothing to say about Keith Ellison. Yeah, John, that's something, right? And here's something I haven't heard anyone but me say, right? Not this part. Yes, there was a coup. There was a revolution going on in the Ukraine. And by the way, I'll get to the point that I'm the only person I've heard say this, but here's my novice, non-expert opinion of what's going on in the Ukraine. I'm assuming that Yovanovitch, or whatever his name was, Yovanovitch or whatever, I get his name messed up with Yovanovitch's, but he was the president in 2014. He probably was a pro-Putin president. I have no reason to deny that. And I bet it made you mad if you were a Ukrainian citizen. Right? Now, you're mistaken if you don't think the U.S. was involved in that coup. Of course they were. Of course. So then they get that guy out and Poroshenko gets put in. He's the pro-U.S. guy. Just like you hear all this propaganda about Assad and about Gaddafi and about, all of these people. All the Western media tells you, oh yeah, Assad gassed his people. Only he didn't, whistleblowers tell us. Oops. We were lied to. Gaddafi, not to say Gaddafi was a great guy, but we have to overthrow him in Libya. Yep, that worked out well. Lied to again. Right? Those are the same people telling us, the Ukrainian government needs to go. They're pro-Putin. Poroshenko's a great guy. We got him put in. Now, if you're a person in Ukraine, you went from a president who had Russia's best interests at heart to a president who has Obama's best interests at heart. And you're thinking, is it impossible for us to find someone who represents us? That's why 70-some% of them voted for a stand-up comedian named Zelensky, who now won. Now, here's the part that I'm the only person in the entire world I've heard say this. If you watch the witness testimonies, right, they all said that they supported the fact that Obama held off on the aid until they got rid of Shokin because we shouldn't be giving aid to a corrupt government. That was what they said. It's what the Democrats have been saying. It's what the witnesses have been saying, right? From the State Department. Your Fiona Hills, your Vindmans, Yovanovitches, that crew, right? They also said, all of them, that Zelensky's the real deal. Finally, a Ukrainian president who's going to investigate corruption, who looks out for the Ukrainian people. Now, wait a minute. Think about what that means. What are they saying without saying? What's implicit in that? You know that guy that the State Department and Obama propped up and gave all that money to, billions of dollars, named Poroshenko? Turns out he was corrupt. That's why he was ousted by 75% of the vote from the Ukrainian people in favor of a stand-up comic. Now, the Democrats, they never even realize that these people are so stupid. It's only because they control the narrative they get away with it. They don't realize they're contradicting themselves. So I got to listen to George Kent and Ambassador Taylor and Yovanovitch and Vindman and Fiona Hill tell me, Zelensky's the real deal. Finally, an anti-corrupt person. And we shouldn't be giving money to corrupt people. But you all advocated giving money to Poroshenko, didn't you? They all did. That was the policy. That's what they all said. Remember, how dare Trump interrupt established U.S. foreign policy of giving aid to the Ukraine? That's what they said, right? That was their established foreign policy. So now they've admitted, okay, this new guy came in because the last guy was so corrupt. But yes, we did advocate giving a bunch of money to that previous corrupt guy. Yeah, Zelensky, they say he was like the Jon Stewart. He basically played a satirical version of someone who was outing corruption in the Ukrainian government. He ran on one issue, corruption in the Ukrainian government. Clearly, the Ukrainian people thought that the Obama ally, Poroshenko, that Obama propped up, was corrupt. Now, do you hear anyone talking about that? Now, if that's the case, why wouldn't Trump, when he finally talks to the guy who's fighting corruption, say, hey, our previous administration was working with that past corrupt guy, Poroshenko. Can you work with us to find out exactly what was going on? Seems reasonable to me. I think it was, boy, it's been a couple weeks. Maybe it was Ambassador Taylor who said another thing that shocked me that I haven't heard anyone else talk about. He said that they told Zelensky not to go after people in the previous administration, Poroshenko's administration, not to investigate them for corruption because he needed to heal the country and bring them together, right? That's what they said. Why didn't they say that about Yanukovych when he was ousted? At that point, it was the U.S. policy. What did Biden and Obama say? We want them to go after these corrupt oligarchs that were in the previous administration. Isn't that weird? Yet another example of the State Department saying, when it came to situation one, when Poroshenko came in, we said, yeah, get those greedy bastards that were there before you. But Then when it came to investigating Obama allies for their corruption, all of a sudden the State Department was like, oh, no. It would be a mistake to investigate the Obama allies, the Soros allies. That would be a mistake. Isn't that odd? But nothing to see here. That's what was going on. Why couldn't, right? So the entire State Department, we're told, everyone in the State Department said that they were skeptical of Trump. They think, because none of them heard him say quid pro quo. None of them heard him talk about what his intent was. In fact, Sondland was the only one who had a personal conversation, and Trump said no quid pro quo. So they're all saying it was our presumption it was a quid pro quo, and it was our presumption that Trump did it to help himself in the 2020 election. Their presumption. Well, you know what else they presumed? They all presumed it was a good idea to send all this money to Poroshenko, and Poroshenko was the real deal and not corrupt. That was also their presumption, which was wrong. But believe them this time. Now they're telling the truth. Why should we believe anything any of these officials say? Any of them. Let's go back to the FBI. Again, we know, most of you watching here, we know it's corruption. We know it's corrupt. We know it's not a coincidence that Clapper and Brennan and Comey and McCabe and Rosenstein threatened to wear a wire, and Baker and Rebecca suggested doing a 302 on Trump when he was briefed about the dossier, and Strzok and Page. We know it's not a coincidence that they all hated Trump and have shown it over and over again, but they just happen to be grossly incompetent when breaking FBI policy to spy on him. But let's suspend reality for a minute and go with the Democrat narrative. They're all incredibly incompetent. That's what we're told. Why should we believe them about anything? Same with the State Department. So they're so incompetent, they told us Poroshenko was a great guy for 3 years, and it turns out he was horribly corrupt. So much so that the citizens of the Ukraine overwhelmingly voted for a comedian to oust him. But then they tell us, okay, but don't investigate that corruption under Poroshenko. And then George Kent tells us in testimony, well, we didn't tell them to drop investigations into Lyshenko, who publicly admitted to helping Hillary in the election, or Artem Sitnik, who publicly admitted to helping Hillary in the election, or the people at the ANTI-C, the Anti-Corruption Action Center that was funded by Obama and Soros. We didn't tell them to drop the investigation. We just said, we're going to be done cooperating with you if you don't. In other words, a quid pro quo. That was testified by George Kent. Not one Republican, when Yovanovitch and all of them were up there saying, oh no, there was no election interference. Oh no, we never told, Lutsenko's corrupt. Lutsenko, that Ukrainian prosecutor, he's corrupt. We never told him to drop investigations. Not one Republican was like, here's George Kent's testimony. He says you did. Here's actual paperwork with his signature on it saying exactly that. Where were the Republicans? The Republicans either at this point believe what we know to be true, that the FBI leadership was horribly corrupt, or they believe the Democrat narrative that they're horribly incompetent, yet they can't wait to genuflect. Oh, but yes, we know it was Russia. Russia. Oh, the Russians. We know. Remember, every Democrat said that in the IG testimony. None of this disputes the FBI or Bob Mueller's findings that Russia interfered. No, it doesn't. And the Republicans couldn't wait to say, oh, we know. The Russians did it. We know. How do we know? Because the Democrats' argument, the FBI is so incompetent, they don't know not to falsify evidence. They're the ones who told us Russia did it. I don't believe them. They're either corrupt, which means we shouldn't trust them, or they're so incompetent, how the hell were they investigating a hack? But the Republicans are so spineless, no one has the nerve to say it. Oh, we know it was Russia. No doubt it was Russia. All the FBI said it was Russia. It could have been. That's entirely plausible. It could have been. But if I was there, I would say, maybe it was Russia. Can we have a non-incompetent or corrupt agency do that investigation? Because clearly the FBI wasn't up to par. Get him out. We're going to take James Comey's word? The guy that was criminally referred by Horowitz for leaking classified information to start an investigation into Trump? We're to take the agency that 17 times misled the FISA court to spy on Trump's campaign? That's whose word we're taking? An agency that was so spineless, they couldn't even get the server from the DNC. They had to rely on redacted transcripts from CrowdStrike. That's who we're going to believe. That's what we're going to believe. That's what the Republicans are about now. Oh yeah, Russia. What's up, KC? It's nonsense. Now why am I able to make these arguments better than most of the Republicans? Am I smarter than them? I don't think so. Do I have better access to information than them? Clearly not. Do I have more free time? Is it my job to look into this? No. I work 60, 70 hours a week. In fact, I have to leave here in half an hour to go back to work. Because I care about my country and the corruption, talk about this stuff. I get maybe 2-3 dozen people that'll watch. The people we have, some of them are good. Don't get me wrong. The Jim Jordans, the Meadows, the Gates. But even they, why aren't they calling that out? Enough's enough. It's time to stop playing defense. It's time to stop talking about this impeachment saying, oh, Trump didn't do anything impeachment worthy. Yes, that's true, and you can add that in. This impeachment is a coup. It is a sham. It is a distraction from the fact that the Democrats, their media, and their intel agencies are corrupt. They've been out to get Trump the entire time. They've broken the law. They have violated the biggest trust that we should have, that we give this intel agency the power to ruin our lives, the power to strip us of all of our freedoms. And they proved that they are corrupt and they will go after people for political reasons. And it was covered up by the Democrats and the media, who still cover it up. That's what this impeachment's about. What do I do for work? I do home health care. I do block shifts, which is why it's hard for me to keep a consistent schedule for people with developmental disabilities. So basically, I go into someone's house who needs help, and I work with them. It's actually a fantastic job, and I get to spend Christmas with my buddy here. I'll be working the entire week of Christmas, but it's cool. It's a job that I think is important, but it's nothing politics based. Nothing media-based. This is all hobby for me. I haven't got 1 cent. I ran for Congress. I've never made more than $15 an hour my whole life. I ran for Congress. I had people offer to give me donations. I said no. I knew I probably wouldn't win, but I was running to prove a point. I'm tired of people running for office as a career. I'm tired. I live in rural Pennsylvania. I see my community going to crap. It's actually somewhat getting better under Trump, but there's still a lot of things. I know veterans that can't get health care. I see the opioid crisis in my town every day. You know, the biggest employers, the mall in my town's dilapidated. Every business is leaving. The biggest employer was a glass manufacturer. It shut down less than a decade ago. It's tough. And we send these people to Washington, and they ain't representing us, most of them. So I just wanted to run to prove a point. I knew I wasn't going to win, but I'm just trying to prove a point. I came from these people. I'm different than them. I'm the worst hunter you'll ever see. I can't, like, my wife is far more of a handyman than me. I'm terrible. And all of her family's like truck drivers, welders, carpenters, farmers. You know, my family was the same way. I suck at all that stuff. But that's the people I respect. Those are the people I think make this country what it is. And it's not just them. I'm not just saying rural Pennsylvania. There's inner city people that are amazing too. If you were born in the inner city, in a crime-infested place, and you were somehow able to work yourself out of that, you're a better person than me. I fully acknowledge that. I don't think I could have done it. Wherever you're from, There are people you see in your community that are just trying to do the right thing. Work. Be good people. Yeah, we all make mistakes. Who's representing them? From any party. I don't care. The party doesn't matter to me. I happen to be more Republican. So I ran as a Republican in this special election. Cost me about $5,000. I'm still paying off credit cards for it. I go to these things, these Republican things. No one has any there are people like me that have passion, but they ain't getting paid. They're just people that are passionate about their country. They hate the corruption they're seeing. But the people that are, it's job it is. It's like, it's a job. There's no passion. It just infuriates me because, we could talk till we're blue in the face here. 10, 20 people. Okay. It doesn't even make a dent in the narrative. That's why I say everyone should do what you can, not just to support me, support independent people. Support left-wing independent people that hate Trump, like Jimmy Dore or Aaron Mattei. They hate Trump, but they understand the corruption. They understand what's going on with the FBI and with this impeachment sham. Those are the people we should be supporting on the left or the right. I will have a great holiday. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I think the reason that it seems like I know more than 90% of the people out there is one, I have free time and I enjoy looking into it. But second, when you look at like the politicians and stuff, they just take stuff for granted or they're towing a party line. I don't care about the party line at all. 95% of Americans, for example, probably think every name that used that slush fund, where our tax money paid to settle sexual assault allegations or sexual harassment allegations. Hey, what's up, Clearly Clever? 95% of people probably think, yeah, that should end, and we should know who used that slush fund. Yet it doesn't get done. 95% of people thought bailing out the banks was a bad idea, but it didn't get done. But we did it anyways, despite what people thought. This crap happens all the time. So I don't really care what the party line is. So yeah, I'll be heading out here shortly, but yeah. The important takeaway is this. When you're discussing impeachment with people, yes, everyone's doing a good job arguing why it's a sham, it's a coup. It is. There is no crime. I mean, they made up the crimes. Abuse of power? Always be thinking, the people that you disagree with, right? How can you convince them more of your case? Do you know how many hippie-type people I'm friends with? A lot. I'm fortunate to be friends with a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. They supposedly, they're the anti-war party. They're anti-war people. Pacifists. So we go back to Clinton and the bombings he had. W. Bush, Iraq, Afghanistan. Obama, all the drone strikes. Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya. Trump bombing Syria. None of that was an abuse of power worth impeaching. None of it. Watch Tucker 2 nights ago. He says, technically, if we're going to be honest, you probably could have impeached every president going back to at least Reagan for abuse of power. But what was it that put the needle over the mark? What was it that was one straw too much? Wasn't bombing people, wasn't droning an American citizen like Obama did and killing him. Right? What was it? Asking a foreign government to investigate corruption? That was what took the needle over the mark? Now, when you understand why that's the case, you'll understand everything about Washington. The cardinal sin is, don't you dare look into corruption of the establishment. That's the big sin. Everything else is forgivable. Hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, sex child trafficker, no problem. Droning American citizens without a warrant, no problem. Going to war without congressional approval, can't. Overspending the deficit, right? Spending money we don't have, no problem. Bailing out banks, fine. But don't you dare investigate corruption. Thank you, Bradley. I really appreciate it. That should anger every one of us. That IG report on FISA abuse, that should anger every one of us. I put my buddy, I don't know, I gotta ask some of my friends that help me out if I could say their names or not. Some people are hesitant because it could affect their job. My buddy edited together parts of my live stream where I'm just screaming about the IG report, which it's funny because my wife says I sounded like Alex Jones. But I wasn't yelling about gay frogs yet. Everyone should be that man. It's the end of your country, is what it is. It's the public admission that the most powerful investigative agency in the history of the world could be co-opted to go after political rivals. I say this all the time. What's your issue? Second Amendment? Either side of it. You think we should have more guns? You think we should have less? Abortion, pro-life, pro-choice, climate change. You think it's the most important issue ever, or you think that it's being abused to consolidate power? Every issue. We can disagree on the issues. No matter what your core issue is, I'm here to tell you it doesn't matter. It matters. It matters in that it might matter to you, and it might, if you're right, it might matter to the world. But it doesn't matter politically, because the only issues that matter are issues that the establishment agrees with you on. If the establishment decides tomorrow they don't care about climate change, they can't use it to consolidate power and strip you of your rights and your wealth, then they'll stop caring about it. And then you're going to be like, but wait a minute. Aren't we all dead in 10 years? Doesn't matter. You can scream until you're blue in the face. You knew that there was corruption, and you cheered for it if you're someone who's cheering for this impeachment process and cheering for the FBI. And now, when it's directed at you, which predictably it will eventually be directed at you personally, or it will be directed at a politician or a party that you're supporting or a cause that you're supporting. It will happen. You'll have no one to defend you. I'll still be here. But you're a hypocrite. You can't see what's happening here? You care about gay rights? Maybe the FBI doesn't, so tough luck. If you have a candidate that will really support gay rights in a way you like, they'll just say, nope, sorry, we'll spy on them. We'll do whatever we can to keep them from being effectual. I keep talking to these people. I wish I could talk to Jimmy Dore or Michael Tracy or these left-wing people that hate Trump so much and be like, what is it that Trump did that you hate? Maybe you hate his ideas. Maybe you're a rabid social justice person. You believe in open borders, blah, 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 right? I disagree vehemently with all that. But let's say that's what they are. But they also understand the sham impeachment, the sham Russia investigation, the corruption at the intel agencies, how failed the media is, and how they're in bed with the intel agencies. All these people understand that. Your Jimmy Dores, your Aaron Mateys, Michael Tracy's, Glenn Greenwald, Matt Taibbi. What is it that Trump has done policy-wise, or even personal foible-wise, that makes you hate him more than the FBI, than the media, than those intel agencies? Clearly the bigger threat is the intel agencies. Clearly the bigger threat is not having a free press. Trump will be gone in 4 to 8 years. So I'm not saying defend the guy and say I'm going to vote for him, but they spend more than half their time bashing the guy and how horrible and terrible he is. Meanwhile, what has he done? He's just an unlikable guy? Okay. This is our opportunity to say, do you see the corruption? You average American, can you now see what we've been talking about? Can you see it? It's in your face. It's not Trump. Trump's kind of irrelevant, believe it or not. And even Trump kind of agrees, I think. Because did you see when Trump sang He says this all the time, or a combination of this. He says, it's not me they're coming after, it's you. And he's right. He happens to be the manifestation of their rage, of their target right now. But you don't have to like him to be pissed off about that. That's what could bring this country together. Saying F you to the really corrupt. The media, the establishment, especially those in the Democratic Party. Look, if you're Michael Tracy, like I was tweeting at him earlier, there has to be room for, let me put it this way. I understand that we need at least 2 political parties in this country. I would prefer that they both be actually interested in helping people out and just disagree on the manner to get there. But clearly just having one party won't suffice. So clearly there's room for a left-wing political party. Clearly. I personally know people like this. They've been pro-union their whole life. They voted Democrat their whole life, right? Because they're union members. They don't like Trump at all. They think it is, whatever. And regardless of what you think, I know a lot of people like how Trump tweets. Some of it I like. But there are reasons not like him. I mean, he apparently cheated on his wife. That's not a good thing. He talks to, why is he tweeting about Rosie O'Donnell and stuff? I don't know, right? But just imagine you're this person, right? So you don't like the guy personally, for whatever reason. That's your choice. I'm not here to convince people to personally like someone or not. And you're a union member. Now all of a sudden, here comes 2016. You got Hillary cheering for the TPP that's basically going to devastate unions. You get all these Democrats cheering for globalism that's basically going to devastate unions. Right? Maybe you're a union, most of the people I know that are union work is like welders or farming type jobs, stuff like that. Here comes the Green New Deal. Now we're going to put farmers out of business. We're going to put coal miners out of business. Right? We're going to eliminate vehicles. Maybe you work at GM or something. Who are you going to vote for? On one hand, you don't like Trump. You've been a lifelong Democrat, but they're throwing you under the bus. That's what could bring us together. Everybody's waiting for a candidate that's going to come along and be like, here's someone we could all get behind. No, that's not what's going to happen. Because we're so far away from that. What's going to bring us together is enough of us saying, maybe me and you disagree. Maybe me and you have a disagreement on economic policy or even social policies. But we're tired of the corruption. Enough! We're tired of people treating it like a career to go to Washington. Getting insanely rich. We don't know how. And no one's ever held accountable. We're tired of being told that Jeffrey Epstein hobnobbing with the world's elite, our politician, princes in another country, scientists, business people. Basically an open secret that he's sexually trafficking underage girls. Pleads guilty to having sex with an underager, then's having parties that Katie Couric and George Stephanopoulos are showing up to, members of our media. Then when he's finally maybe going to be brought to justice, because who, by the way, who started that? Who started the ball rolling on the Epstein case being reopened? Do you know? Mike Cernovich. Who's someone I haven't agreed with everything Cernovich said. But he's just one of these crazy Trump supporters, right? Just one of these crazy Trump YouTubers. His insistence to keep pressing for it led to the Miami Herald to join his lawsuit, which inevitably the FBI admitted reopened their investigation. How was the FBI so inept that they had to rely on Mike Cernovich to be able to prosecute a child sex trafficker? Then they're so inept again that they allow him to get killed in prison after he supposedly tried to kill himself. The same FBI that they didn't know you're not supposed to forge evidence to spy on Trump's people. The same FBI, they have no clue when we have the largest mass shooter in U.S. history. They just don't know. They don't know. He shot up a country music festival. Well, that's not worth looking into. They can't figure out what that guy did. Huh? Isn't that weird? Every time. The FBI just seems to be grossly incompetent on every case that matters. Epstein tries to kill himself. Somehow he's taken off suicide watch. The guards fall asleep. The cameras outside malfunction. He manages to kill himself. Now, what's the news that came out this week? Oh, the cameras from the first incident that covered him, quote, trying to kill himself. The footage is lost now. So now we have 2 guards fell asleep, 2 cameras outside his cell malfunction, and the camera footage from the previous incident where he supposedly tried to kill himself has disappeared. We're tired of that. It's infuriating. It's time to do something. Like, contact your representative. Voting against impeachment wasn't enough. What are they doing to fight against this narrative? What policy are they working? What's getting done in Congress right now anyways? Other than this impeachment crap. The USMCA? Other than that. Where are my Congress people? I call their office. I'm like, look, I would just like to talk. Can I send them something in writing? They don't have to give me credit. Just repeat this in front of the cameras about this impeachment stuff. They won't do it. They asked me, would you like to hang up yard signs? Career politicians. They've been doing this 20, 30 years. They don't have a clue. I have a friend I work with. Works a loose term. Someone I met through running through Congress. He was an awesome guy. He does campaigning and things like that. Campaign consultant. He hasn't charged me a dime. He's been working with me. We're trying to come up with ideas. Neither of us are getting paid a dime. And we're constantly driving hundreds of miles to go to Republican things saying, look, we need to... One of the things he does is, did you know that the Pennsylvania GOP Facebook site has 50,000 subscribers? There are pizza shops in my town that have more than that. They don't get it. They're like, oh, we're going to hang up yard signs. What are you doing? Yeah, I ran for House of Representatives. There was a special election last year, District 12 of Pennsylvania, which is the most Republican district. The gentleman that won got ill. The Republican that won got ill, and his name was Tom Marino. He had to back out. And so they had to have a special election. So it wasn't a primary. Instead, conferees got to vote. And I knew, because I wasn't known, that I wouldn't win. But I made it out of 24. I was in the top 10. And I got a standing ovation when I got to speak at the convention, which was cool. But it did cost me $5,000, and the thing that's disappointing is you meet all of these actual representatives that are like, wow, you have a passion for this. We'd really like to talk to you and see how we could help like the average person out. And then you never hear back from anyone. So that's what's going on here. But enough about me. Yeah, I mean, the point is just, that's how we could coalesce in fighting this corruption. Don't just crap on your left-wing friends. Maybe they're out there today celebrating Trump being impeached, but really try to just explain to them, do you understand what this corruption means? How many votes did I get? There were 210 conferees. I got 2, which put me in 10th place. It was a weird system. I'm not going to say it was corrupt, because you could vote for how you want. But oftentimes each county would put up someone for the election, and the people that were running got to appoint the conferees from that county. So if I'm from Clarion County, which, by the way, Clarion County, this was a different district, but let's say my county, Clarion County, if I was running and I get to appoint the conferees that will eventually vote for me, they're probably going to vote for me. So that's what happened. But I thought I did well. It near killed me. I mean, the amount of work I put into it. And it was 3 people. It was me, my Democrat friend Tom, who decided to be my campaign manager, and my wife. And I thought we did very impressive. I mean, the amount of work we had was unbelievable. We had literally, if I would have won the nomination, we had pointed out day to day exactly in the district where I would be every day, what my topic of discussion would be every day. I personally called over 120 people on the phone, most of the time talking to them 20, 30 minutes at a time. And a lot of them didn't like what I had to say on specific issues. It's a very conservative district. They don't like my stance on gay rights. Where I'm like, I don't see a problem with it. Consenting adults want to get married, fine by me. You know, stuff like that. So, but it is what it is. But yeah, the point I'm just trying to make is tell your liberal friends, let them know how corrupt this is. And some aren't going to be willing to hear it. Remember, when you're talking to someone, there's 5 types of people you could be talking to. People that will almost always agree with you. People that will almost always disagree. Then there's people that most of the time will agree with you but could be switched. And people that most of the time disagree but could be switched. Then there's people in the center that maybe they're totally ignorant of what you're talking about, like uninformed. Not in a bad way, but they just don't know what you're talking about enough to have an opinion. Or they're in the middle. So if you assume that whoever you're talking to can't be persuaded otherwise, you might be right, particularly in today's political climate. But it's up to us to try to convince people, even on the left, even that don't like Trump, of how corrupt this is. Because even us Trump supporters, even if Trump wins, that's just 5 more years. We're going to have to live with the corrupt FBI the rest of our lives. We're going to have to live with the corrupt media the rest of our lives. So fighting that's the biggest, most important task. So, all right, everyone. I think I'm going to head out. I gotta head into work for a couple hours. And I'm losing my voice again, so yay. That's all I got. These handsome looks in my voice, so I'll be tweeting more. Follow me on Nor Robert. It's just my name in reverse. I'll put it up. It's my Twitter handle. If you check my YouTube video I just did, I now have a Patreon account. Please do not donate money if you're someone that is struggling. I'm not asking for that whatsoever. If you have extra money and you would like to give to me, I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying to be able to go to more events, get better equipment. I want to get a green screen. I want to get some better camera equipment and things like that. Oh, thank you, John. Yeah, when I run again, I will be running for office again in 2022. And I'll keep people posted on that. Oh, I missed my wife. My wife's Courtney Nora in the talks. In the chat. She wants to know how her sick dog's doing. I've been checking on her, I promise. I fed them. So, but yeah, I better get going. But thank you, everyone. Yeah, I really appreciate the kind words. I do. And look, I might, like I said, I have Patreon. I have Twitter. I have BitChute if you're into that. You can check my last YouTube video for a link to my Patreon account. I don't have it up now, but if that's something you would feel like doing, I'd appreciate it. And I will put that back into my channel. And please, if you could recommend me to some other people, I'm really trying to grow. If I get 1,000 YouTube subscribers, then I could mobile live stream. So when I go to these Republican events, I could actually live stream while I'm there. That would be nice. So I'd really appreciate that. But I do, more than you people know, I really appreciate people willing to listen to me. And I really enjoy hearing from other people as well. So thank you all so much. I do really appreciate it. Now I gotta go check on my dog before my wife gets really mad at me. So thanks, everyone, and have a good one.